Hey everybody, welcome back. Last lesson before spring break. Yeah. Okay, that's about as much enthusiasm as I can muster on a Sunday. Anyway, we're gonna jump right into it today. Today we're shifting our focus from cyberbullying to hazing. Some of you might know what hazing is, some of you won't. By the end of this lesson, all of you will. And not only that, we'll be able to determine whether or not hazing qualifies as bullying, which therefore makes it qualify as um, violence, right? So let's jump right in. All right, our goals for today is going to be to study this concept of hazing to determine whether or not it qualifies as bullying. All right, we will define hazing and look at its effects. I have two videos for that. We will also compare bullying to hazing to see if it's similar. Does it qualify as bullying? So, as usual, I like to start with a do now question. So, I want you to think back to your personal experiences, right? Oftentimes, we seek to join groups, and a lot of times, in order to join groups, there's like requirements. So, what I want you to do is just describe the weirdest or meanest thing your friend has been asked to do in order to join a group. All right, so let's think about that, and then we'll jot that down now. All right, so as always, we can't talk about something unless we can define something, right? So I'm going to read through this definition of hazing, and you know the drill by now. This is the point where you pause it so that you can take a picture, or write this down, or screenshot it if you're good on your computer like that. So hazing is any embarrassing or dangerous activity that is expected or required of someone who wants to join or stay in a group. Okay. So, I mean, that seems pretty vague, right? But those qualifiers are important, right? Those adjectives. Hazing requires either embarrassment, harassment, humiliation, or an element of danger to it, right? It's this point where you prove your worth to the group, right? So that's what I want you to think of when we're talking hazing. Okay, it's this proving time where you're subjected to a lot of harsh treatment. So, as with most things, there's levels to this, right? It's not like one standard behavior is hazing, right? Hazing can be low lift stuff, um, it can be medium level stuff, or it can be quite severe, right? So, I'm not going to read through this whole slide again. This is where you would pause to go through this in detail. But I do want to sort of emphasize low level hazing is the sort of stuff you don't even necessarily know it's hazing. It's just like, oh yeah, those are like the older kids teasing me, or yeah, well, you got to bust the new guy's chops, or the new girl's chops, right, or the new person's chops. It's one of those things where you don't necessarily realize that it's harmful, but after a while, that pattern of behavior can start to wear on you. It makes it hard to create trust and actually build the teamwork and camaraderie that they're supposedly trying to make. The medium level stuff is where things start to get a little more risky. There's some elements to this that put your health or your either physical or emotional health at risk because the activities are sort of ratcheting up. And in its worst case, hazing can be extremely violent. It can be criminal. It can be vandalizing stuff. It can be physically harming a person. Those kinds of things. Um, and oftentimes at those highest levels, it's not just one person hazing you. It's oftentimes like the entire group is forced to participate in this. So those are sort of the levels. Again, go through this repeatedly on your own. But I just want to sort of create a standard for us to kind of get locked in. All right. So now that we know the levels, here's where you see hazing, right? Because you're like, maybe some of you have experienced hazing and not had a name for it. Maybe you are familiar with hazing but don't know where it happens. And for those of you who are entirely new to the concept, right, we have to sort of figure out exactly where this hazing takes place. So specific instances of hazing relate to certain types of groups, like fraternities and sororities. They have their rush week or their hell week. And there's a pledge period where at any point you can suffer from some of these hazing activities, these rituals, right? These sort of self-important things that are supposed to be built with you. It's about you quotes paying your dues. It's supposed to be making everybody feel stronger and create a team atmosphere, but it's sort of counterproductive If I'm learning that you're a horrible human when you have power, I'm never going to trust you. But their logic is that they put you through this hell week and then suddenly you'll be a member of the group. We'll be equals and it'll be okay. Street gangs, haze, right? The whole jumping in idea, or like the idea of you picking a random fight with a stranger, right? We talked about some of that when we talked about gang violence earlier. Same thing applies here, though. It's a group. You don't have that power dynamic, and they're forcing you to do things. Military or police groups oftentimes also have issues with hazing, um, mainly because these groups preach brotherhood and fraternity, right? So rookies and younger folk are paired up with a veteran who oftentimes puts them through a lot of crap. Which brings us finally to sports teams, specifically with rookies. Rookie hazing is common pretty much in every sport. I know at professional baseball, rookies are basically treated like valets or butlers. They have to carry veterans' equipment around. In the NBA, they do like rookie fashion shows where they make them dress up in ridiculous costumes and like embarrass it and like post it on the internet or like put it in like team videos. And in the NFL, like it's pretty much just straight like picking on the new guys in various different ways. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna use the NFL as an example. We're gonna look at a video of NFL star Jamal Charles, where he's explaining some of the experiences that he had with rookie hazing. All right, so we're going to bring this to the beginning. All right, and we're going to watch this video real quick.
Clothes in the shower, bro. So I'm about to fight this man. And I was crying. I'm crying. I'm like, that man too big to be fighting. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man.
Jamal Charles.
Dude.
How you doing?
Man.
Congratulations on retirement, man.
Appreciate it. Now I'm about to retire you on these pool sticks.
Oh, is that right? Jamal, you had some incredible years with the Kansas City Chiefs. What are some memorable stories that you may have with either Andy Reid or Larry Johnson?
Yeah, I got plenty of Larry Johnson, man.
Start me off with Larry then. I need something from Larry.
Man, Larry treated me like a brother when I got to know him. But like when I first knew him, my rookie year was kind of rough. You know, when you come in, you get a lot of haze. That's rookie coming up. So that's my rookie year. You had to bring food to the veteran guys. So I forgot to bring food one week, and it's my first time I was really seeing Larry get outrageous. Where my lunch at? I'm like, oh, man. So I'm like, man, I'll get you next time. So I thought, you know what I'm saying? I thought he would just let it go. And the next practice came coming in. I had a good practice, smiling, laughing, everything, man. Going my locker, bro. I was like, ooh. Because I know him every week they was getting somebody. They was getting,
what'd he do to you, man? What'd he do to you?
I get in the shower, I'm like, who they got today? I'm like, oh, man, that looks familiar right there. Them clothes look familiar right there. I'm like, nah, that can't be my clothes, man.
When did you realize that was your clothes?
I keep telling myself, it better not be my clothes. So I'm like, bro, he didn't throw my clothes in the shower, bro. So I'm about to fight this man. And I was crying. I'm crying. I'm like, that man too big to be fighting. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm going to fight him. So I call everybody, try to convince them to talk me out. I ain't going to really fight him. Mama, I'm about to fight him. I'll fight that fight. All right, mama, I'll call you back. I call my girlfriend. I'm about to fight him. And as you know, they calm me down. Like, man, okay, I'm about to hit him in the head of his helmet. He said, don't do that, Jamal.
What'd you wear out of the locker room then?
I gave my clothes to give the equipment guy to dry off. Oh, man, I was just sitting down with my little towel on, man. My little towel with my little stool. So I had to wait till it get dry out. How long it takes to get the clothes washed? About 40 minutes, about 45. I had to wait a good old and with towel around my waist. So I'm the only one there sitting there. Everybody went home. I'm waiting for my clothes to get dry off by the equipment guy. It was a good time getting that playbook by time. But I didn't feel bad because a couple of weeks later, he slashed one of my homeboy ties because he didn't bring no food. Michael Cox. He can tell you to this day, man, he probably still mad, you know what I'm saying? But I like, man, we got to stop playing with this man. This man, he making us pay one way or another. You don't want to pay for food, you're going to have to pay somewhere else. So I was like, you got to bring some shifted donuts, whatever you want. Denny's, okay. Every on the way trip, he got a Subway sandwich. I got a Subway sandwich. So I'm eating like him, too. After I saw that, it took me one time. It always take me one time to learn my lessons.
Thanks for kicking it with us.
All right. So that was just a little look into a hazing situation. All right. So now that we saw that video, here's my question. Was the hazing incidents that happened to Jamal and his teammate Michael Cox bullying? Why or why not? I want you guys to take some time now. You can, rewind the video if you have to. And I want you to go through this and ask yourself that question, right? Is what happened to Jamal and Michael bullying? And then tell me why you think it is or why you think it isn't. So it looked like Jamal took that pretty well. And in that environment, it's almost encouraged, right? It's just what happens to rookies. That's an example of an attitude that promotes hazing. There are some attitudes that people have. And as usual with this kind of note slide, I'm not going to go through everything, but I do want to kind of focus on like the bolded areas, the sort of topics, right? So we have the teens who have currently been hazed or being hazed and what they think. We have teens who are doing the hazing and what they think. And then we have adults who condone hazing with some of the stuff that they think or some of the ways they feel. Okay, so a lot of times for those teens who have been hazed, it's things like, well, I'm proving myself, or things will get better once I get in, or, I can't quit now. I've already done so much. Like those types of attitudes that create excuses for this. There's no excuse for this. If people are mistreating you, you should do things to prevent it. If people are witnessing you being mistreated, those people should step up and say something. Teens who are doing the hazing oftentimes because they've had it done to them would be like, look, I lived through it. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, oh, I'm just, giving them the opportunity to prove themselves. What's the big deal? That's what everybody does. So it's one of those things where they had it done to them. And instead of stepping up and fixing the problem, they just perpetuate the problem. So yeah, not a good reason, not a good attitude, but those are the sort of attitudes that they have. And then the adults who condone hazing oftentimes were members of the same groups. And it just builds strength, it builds discipline, it makes it so that we're a family and we're strong. Or I had it way worse. Again, as if perpetuating the situation somehow makes it better. Newsflash, it doesn't. Right, so all of these attitudes get in the way of us preventing hazing from happening. And again, in Jamal's case, maybe the consequences weren't too severe. But this is the sort of situation where we want to like really figure out how to prevent this from happening in the future. And we also want to understand like why, based on like the severe consequences that could happen as a result of this, right? So with that in mind, we're going to now view a TED Talk. And it's a short one. And we're going to hear another hazing story about this guy who tried to join a frat. And as we're listening, we'll get more information to draw conclusions about hazing and figure out again, like, so is what happened to this man an example of bullying? I'm back. All right, so let's enlarge this.
Hi. So, as a novelist, a big part of my job is to look over my life and ask questions. And then I take that truth, my own personal experience, and I apply it to my craft, which doesn't mean that I, take the true action of what happened to me and apply it to fiction, but you take the emotional truth. And you do that by asking these questions. And one of the questions I looked at, one of the parts of my life I looked at, was when I was 18 years old. I wanted more than anything to be in a fraternity. I mean, my parents were like, "Dude, why do you want to?" My dad, who's a scientist, was like, "Why do you want to enrich your friends? Like, why do you want to do this?" I just really wanted to do it. And so I pledged to fraternity. And to be quite honest, I didn't really understand the whole pledgeship thing. I didn't understand I'd pay thousands of dollars in dues, and I was going to be someone's servant. That's not my puke. I'm not cleaning that up. That didn't go over so well. That's a little secret. If you're pledging, that doesn't go over so well. And so one night, a burlap sack was put over my head. I was taken out into the tall piney woods in North Louisiana. And when the burlap sack was removed, there was a huge bonfire and about 50 drunk actives that were really, really mad at me. And they were going to teach me a lesson that only busted lips and bloody noses could teach. And after it was all said and done, I was dropped off at my dorm at around 4 a.m. Covered in mud and bruises and with a big question. Why? Right? Why did they think they had the right to do this? Why didn't I fight back? And why wasn't I going to tell anybody? So when I wrote The Worthy, I wrestled these whys to the ground. That's what you do as an artist. You take these questions, you wrestle them around. But the problem with writing this book is I did my research. I began to uncover bigger whys, like this. Why does every fall someone's son die because of hazing? Every fall. And this has been going on since 1970. Some sources say since 1900. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. And the other question I have is, why is this spreading? It's not disappearing. People like to tell you their stories about hazing, about back in the old days, how it used to be. This isn't going away. This is spreading. This is India. Huge problem now that they have colleges up and running. So why? Ask the question why. And a lot of people will just say, that's boys will be boys. Accidents will happen, right? And these are traditions. These are traditions that turn boys into men. As stupid as they are, as cruel as they might be, they turn boys into men. Sometimes great men. But as I ask why and as I answer these questions, I can tell you this: that these men were not great because of hazing. They were great despite it. And that's one of the things I think we can mix up. And that's one of the beliefs that we mix up when we think about hazing, is that the brotherhood isn't built by that. It's built despite that. So I continue to ask the question why. And a lot of people like to answer it with, it's biology, right? This is not biological, it's cultural. And the way that we disrupt that is by asking why. And in 3 minutes, I can't solve this for you, but I can give you the tool. You have a soul, use it. When you hear the why popping up in a situation, ask why. Demand the answer and use your soul. Thank you.
All right. So now we move on to sort of this last question. I'm going to hit present for this one. All right. We want to ask ourselves, hazing, is it bullying? So right now, based on what you heard from Jamal Charles, what you just heard from this gentleman here, I want you guys to think about what you know about hazing, what you learned about hazing today, what you know about bullying already. And I want you to ask yourself, does hazing qualify as bullying? All right, take a second now and answer that question. All right, hazing is bullying, and here's why. The first thing is that our definition of bullying focuses on power dynamics. Bullies use power over targets to start circumstances for bullying to happen. I'm bigger and I'm stronger than you, or I have more friends than you do, or I have more money and more influence than you do. Whatever it is, it always starts from that position of power. New members or recruits, people trying to join, they don't have as much power or any power sometimes. And because of that, they're forced to do what is requested or suffer abuse, right? So the gentleman said, I didn't sign up to clean up other people's vomit. Like, that's not what I'm here for. So they dragged him out into the woods and they beat his ass, right? Like, that is a prime example of him having no power, him saying no to something, and him being him suffering abuse as a direct result, right? That power dynamic there. All right. Hazing is bullying because it happens in patterns. So there is a pattern to this. They plan out these things that they want to do to these new recruits, and they figure out how exactly to continuously bully them. It's also a pattern within that organization, period, right? Because as, let's say I'm in a class that goes through the hazing, the next year it's now my duty to do this hazing, right? So I'm going to continue this cycle, this pattern of needless bullying and violence on the new people because, quotes, that's what we do, or they got to prove themselves, I did, right? And that sort of attitude is part of why this is a pattern of behavior for these particular organizations. And then lastly, hazing is bullying because it uses the three forms of bullying, the three major forms of bullying that we've discussed already, right? It involves intimidation, right? You better not tell nobody. It's going to be bigger problems for you, right? It is coercion. The people who are in the frat or in the team or in, part of that police organization or in that sorority, they're expected to participate in this. They're expected to go along with it. And there are consequences for them if they don't force the hazing on the next group underneath them, right? So that's coercion, right? You don't want to lose your status. You don't want to lose your favor in this group. You don't want to become the victim yourself. So you are forced to do this even if you know it feels wrong. Which brings us to that last area of harassment, right? It is a daily form of harassment. Sometimes it becomes physical abuse, but a lot of times it's emotional and mental torture. Being in a constant state of discomfort because other people enjoy it because they're making you, quotes, prove yourself. All right. So all three, intimidation, coercion, and harassment, are covered within the bounds of hazing, right? Which is just further proof that it is indeed bullying. All right. So thank you for listening to my spiel. I hope these videos were entertaining. I especially think the Jamal Charles one was a nice touch. It kind of also lends to the fact that there are levels to this, right? Like Jamal's thing was kind of lower to mid-level, whereas what unfortunately happened to the gentleman was like he was physically assaulted by a lot of people, which is definitely a crime, right? So just to sort of show you the levels of this. So now we're just going to sort of shift to Google Classroom. There is no exit ticket for this. I wanted to give you guys another chance to sort of reassess Learning Goal H1.1, which is vocab, and H1.2, which are real world scenarios. It's a shorter quiz than usual, but the questions are worth more points. So we're going to go through that now. Some of the vocabulary is repeating, right? It's a reassessment. So this is your built-in reassessment. And it's your last little quiz before break. I'll be on Wednesday to do office hours and also to be available during catch-up day. All assignments are due by Wednesday. All right. My grade book for this section is closing past that, right? So those are going to go into zeros right now if they're used. So check. It's up to you to check your, check your jump rope. If you have any U's or anything missing, that's on you to get that done by Wednesday. Reach out by email, hit me up on Hangouts, hit me up on, we can set up a Zoom appointment, whatever you guys need, you let me know. All right. But everything is going in for Wednesday and then it's a zero after that. All right. So let's not have that happen. Let's go take this quiz right now, do our thing. And then if you owe me anything, get that into me by Wednesday. All right. Y'all have a wonderful Monday, a wonderful Tuesday. If I don't catch you Wednesday, enjoy all of your spring break. Feel free to reach out. All right. Just because we're on break doesn't mean we can't talk. Y'all have a good one. All right.